I think we can start now. Warm greetings to everyone and welcome to today's IMC webinar. My name is Jitendra and I'm delighted to be your host for this session. At International Mentoring Center, we are passionate about empowering professionals through mentoring, leadership development, and building vibrant communities of practice. Our mission is to create transformative experiences that help individuals and organizations thrive by sharing stories, skills, and support. We are very pleased to welcome our speaker today, Nicoleta Remmlinger. Nicoleta is a credit risk expert and director at Foremost with extensive international experience in credit risk analytics and the credit bureau industry. She is passionate about improving financial literacy, helps individuals, businesses, and financial institutions better understand credit risk management and credit scores. An award winning industry leader, Nicoleta has been recognized for her contributions to banking and credit risk management and is committed to empowering others through education, mentoring, and knowledge sharing. Today's session is about mentoring for financial growth while understanding credit reporting matters. Quick notes before we begin. The webinar will last about 60 minutes. You're welcome to ask questions by raising your hand or using the chat box. We will also have a Q&A session towards the end of the webinar. This session is being recorded and will be available to you afterwards. And now, without further delay, I'm happy to hand the virtual floor to Nicoleta. Nicoleta, the stage is yours now.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the introduction and pleased to be here. I will have a quick agenda for us, but as we were saying, please feel free to stop in between, ask questions, and I will be happy to answer your doubts. As we were saying, this session will be around how mentors could help their mentees to learn more about credit report and credit score and to understand actually what is a credit report and a credit score. Eventually, there is even a section that I'm proposing for a mentor to read a credit report with a mentee. And at the end, we will discuss action plans, simple progress tracking for both the mentor and the mentees to understand that has been a progress in the financial literacy space. As we were saying, questions will be addressed in between, but also at the end. And I'm now happy to start with the first explanation on why, as we were saying, it's important for mentoring colleagues to also highlight to their mentees, to team members, or even to sub SMEs that make business and financial decisions about credit report and credit scoring. So first of all, we know that they shape major life and business decisions. Often, at an early age, mentees might think to take a loan or a mortgage. In some jurisdictions, the mentees are taking loans for the studying itself. As well, through the career steps, we might be in the need of taking credit, being that, a car loan to say, to travel to our work. And last but not least, managing personal finances to reduce the stress and to improve the performance of the mentees in the workspace. As we were saying, knowing more about your credit report and the credit scores, it builds that financial well-being, right? A foundation for a professional performance, because knowing how to manage your finances, it's reducing an anxiety, and it's always good to do inform financial choices. Sometimes it might be, better that we don't apply for credit, but rather we try to use the money within the budget we are having at our end. Strengthen decision making discipline. So having credit, it's actually really teaching us to be very well organized with the money, how we are spending it, to make sure that the credit that we have taken, it's given back within the timelines that were agreed between the mentees and the financial institution. And When someone learns how to maintain a good score, so as we were saying, paying commitments on time, using that credit responsibly, meaning, we should not take credit to do a vacation unless that vacation is really helping us for our mental health, or maybe it's an important achievement in our professional life, and we want to still use credit for well-being. um, all this knowledge, as I was saying, it's the foundation for the professional performance, and it gives that stability at individual level and supports better the workplace, our focus, and our confidence. Last but not least, it reinforces accountability, a core mentoring outcome, right? Mentors that are equipped with credit knowledge, they will know how to educate small, medium enterprises on how credit health affects financing asset access. As well, they can empower mentees who engage with the businesses or the corporates, and have that advisory capability across the team. It gives strength, it gives unity, because this is what it's important to share with mentees, that we are a team. So I would close this by saying that good mentoring connects personal financial literacy to professional growth. So I would now jump a little bit in what is actually a credit bureau and the related implementation regulation. They are a bit different across jurisdictions, but in general, a credit bureau it's either a public entity, government, federal, or it's a private organization that gathers data from different type of institution. In the past, the gathering was only from banks or financial institution, but these days it might be even other type of institution, and we will see through the session which are these other type of institution. They are called data providers, and the data points that are collected are data points regarding the customers of these financial institutions that are providing credit. What the credit bureau actually does, it's gathering information about the subjects from different institutions, and it's matching this information to make sure that there is only one report for a person or for a corporate. So for example, if Nicoleta has a credit card from a certain bank, bank A, and a personal loan from another bank, bank B, the credit bureau has the mandate to gather the information from both banks and match the information of the subject. So realizing that Nicoleta is the same person in these two banks with two different type of credits, and creating what is called credit report. On the information that are submitted, then the credit bureau has the mandate to create what is called a credit score for each customer. And this credit score, for example, here in UAE where I'm based, it's created by Etihad Credit Bureau. Now, the subscribers of a credit bureau can pull the credit report and the credit score and utilize even other added value services from the bureau. There are services that helps the banks to monitor their portfolio, to monitor the delinquency of the portfolio, or even help banks to increase credit by increasing credit limits, or by offering an additional credit product to their good customers. So, in a nutshell, the type of information that the credit bureau is collecting, it's really information that will help the banks to understand the exposure that these customers they have. This information can come from credit facilities information, but can come also from telcos. So for example, our mobile bill or our landline bill, it's also an exposure that we have versus that type of institution, because we have to pay that bill. As well, the data types are coming also from courts, because we might have a open case where we are due a certain payment, maybe monthly basis. Could give an example, maybe, in case of a divorce, where a certain amount has to be paid as monthly payment. Our income, and this information comes here in UAE from all the banks. It's a mandatory information that the banks have to submit about their customers regarding their both salary information in case of a traditional employment type, but also income that come from other activities, such as renting your property, and that becomes an additional income to your salary. With all this information, the credit bureau is um, coming up with what we call ready-made calculation that are then displayed in a credit report.
Nicoleta, we have a question here. If someone discovers an error on their credit report, what should they do first?
Yeah, so here in UAE, and again, most of the credit bureau around the world, and I was privileged to work with around 10 credit bureau around the world. The Etihad Credit Bureau was my last engagement in this sector, have a section what is called customer experience. So specifically for UAE, if we go on the Etihad Credit Bureau website, there is a section called data correction, where the individual or either the corporate, the SME, can open what is called a complaint and explaining which information is wrong. Of course, we have to provide the proof of why we think or believe that information is wrong. And it's a very fast and automatic process. This information goes to the bureau, then automatically it's assigned to the bank that submitted that potential wrong information, and they have a certain deadline to respond back to the bureau and to correct the information if that's the case. That there is also here in UAE a law, the Central Bank of UAE, it's requiring banks to close complaints with the clients within 5 working days. So it's quite a fast resolution. Actually, there are few cases, kind of known cases, that the information might be wrong. Wrong in the sense that could be totally wrong. Let's say that I have a credit card that my credit limit is 20,000, but actually in reality it's only 10,000. So this, we can say, it's wrong information. So the correction has to happen from 20,000 to 10,000. But information wrong could be also a non-updated information. And in that case, we can give an example. For example, I had a personal loan that has been completely paid on 10th of July, and I'm pulling my credit report and my credit score on 12th of July, and I still see that personal loan results as open, which is not the case because just 2 days ago I have closed it. So in that case, also we can open a complaint. And I have to say that here in UAE, the credit bureau receives daily information. So actually, the banks are mandated to update the information within 24 hours from when the event happens. So if we close a facility, or if we open a new facility, or if our credit limits are changed within 24 hours, the bank should submit this information to the credit bureau, and that will be automatically displayed in the credit report, and then of course used in the credit score. That again, even the credit score, it's a very dynamic calculation, so it's calculating every time that the engine is called, so it's refreshed once the information is corrected. I hope I was able to respond to the question. Is there any other question there? I take that for a no. Okay, we jumped straightforward in what is a credit report and the credit score. So, as I was saying, when the credit bureau is gathering all the information from the different institution type, they create what is called a credit report, which is really a summary of a subject identification details. So here we speak about the section that it's really the name, surname, date of birth, the address, the mobile number. So all the information that are identifying a person or a company, trade name, trade license, and so on. And its exposure to the different organization. And we were speaking earlier about, the fact that we have an open court case or an payment that has to be made because of a court decision. That's also considered as our exposure in the credit report. Now, through the credit score, the credit bureau, it's actually predicting the subject probability of default. What does it mean, default? The probability of default is the probability of a customer of not being able to pay the commitments that has been made in the agreement that has been signed in time over a specific period of time. Usually this prediction that it's based on a model, statistical model, it's up to 12 months, not longer.
So we have another question here. What are the common mistakes people make that negatively affect their credit score?
I'm happy to take the question now, but we will see a specific slide on that. So the common mistakes are having multiple credit cards. This is what I think was very much also a mistake of Middle East and UAE specifically. I have not seen this very often in Europe, to say. And this was like, okay, because the bank was willing to give you on the first credit card, and then another bank was as well approaching you, and as an individual eventually you would say, okay, let me have 2 or 3 just in case I need it, but you're not using it. Actually, you use one, and maybe even the first one you are using, you're not using it up to the credit limit that is given to you. However, by having that 3 credit cards, your total exposure, your potential total exposure, is the sum of that credit limits. So let's say that you have 3 credit cards, each of them it's 30k, 10k dirham. The sum will be 30k. So your total exposure is 30k. Now, even you use only 7 out of this every month, when another bank is inquiring you, and in this case maybe you will ask for a personal loan or a car loan, and you should pay 3,000 for that car loan, and actually 7 plus 3 is 10, that application might be rejected because potentially you have already an exposure of 30,000 dirham, which goes over the total exposure that you could have, because there is another regulation from the Central Bank of UAE that speaks about the DBR, the total indebtedness that the person can have, and it's calculated respect to the own salary. So you should not exceed that limit. So that's the most common mistake, having multiple credit cards and not using them. You should just stick with one credit card and use it. I will give other examples in the slides that I prepared specifically for this argument, but I wanted just to answer the question now.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, going to next slide. I just wanted for you to visualize how a credit report looks. Again, different credit bureau around the world, they have different design of the credit report, but this is just to explain that it's quite self-explanatory. So the section in a credit report that are given to you here in UAE through the Etihad Credit Bureau app, and you can even see the history of your credit report and credit score, are in a PDF format. On the screen you can immediately see what is your score. Here in UAE, the score goes from 300 to 900, 300 being a bad score, meaning that the probability of default for you of not paying that credit is very high. And as you go up, as you can see in this screen, there are 5 stars, which means it's a very good score because it's nearly 800 out of 900. That would be the maximum that a customer could have. On the first page of the credit report, you will see that there are information about the individual, as I was saying, the name, the date of birth, personal information as passport number, Emirates ID, address, mobile number. And then you have a summary of your credit facility. So as you could see here, there is an installment installment application that was requested and then it was closed. So it's very detailed by type of credit facility and by type of institutions. As you can see, the first table on the right side, it speaks about installment, not installment credit cards. These are credit facilities that a person can have from financial institution. And then the second table speaks about telco and utilities. As you can see, telco are, as we were saying, mobile number, your mobile bill or landline bill, and utilities, whatever speaks, for example, here in UAE, DIWA, your water and electricity bills. And here I'm showing you, without displaying the personal information, the format with the details of the demographic information. You can see here that the score is different. This is because I pick up the information from 2 credit reports that I pulled in different times. So it was 799 and it went up to 809, which is an excellent credit score. It's very important when we check our credit report to check that even this information, such as address or the contact details, are correct. And again, as for the question we had earlier, if there is any mistake, we can correct it. And you will see in the website of Etihad Credit Bureau that the information to be corrected, it's like in a drop down list, very detailed. So you can really select which of the address, because maybe you have more than one address in your credit report, and you can say which one is not correct. You will have information about your employment, as you can see, and with the salary information in there. The salary information, it's like literally month by month. This is also very important for individuals to check, because based on this salary information, the banks will decide if to approve or not approve your credit application, but also the limit or also the amount that you are asking.
Okay, so we have another question here. How can startups establish a strong credit profile from the beginning?
Yeah, so startups are, of course, in a challenging situation at the very beginning because their financials will build up in time. Um, the advice I would have, it's same as for individuals, is to start to build up actually the credit history. So building up the credit history means that you should have a credit facility, and that could be, for example, literally a mobile number that is allocated to that startup, and showcasing that that payment is done in time. As we were seeing earlier in the screen here in the telco section, this is where we will have the information about about telco payments, and that will be as a mobile number, and it's paying that amount even if it's a very small amount in time. As the startup is building the financials and will be approved for another credit facility, let's say a car loan for the owner of the startup, again the loan should be on the name of the company and not on the name of the individual. Now, obviously, that when we speak about startups and when we speak about solo entrepreneur that it's owning that startup, there is a mix between the corporate entity and the individual. If Nicoleta has a grocery, okay, the trade license of the grocery will give me all the financials and all the balance sheets and all the profits, hopefully, of the activity. But also Nicoleta's personal individual credit report will count where I when I go to apply for that car loan that I was saying. The banks, they have actually the possibility to inquire first the SME, the startup, and if that information, that startup was uh, shared with the bureau by another bank that it's connected to Nicoleta, that Nicoleta is the owner, then the bank can also immediately inquire also Nicoleta's credit report, and they will take a decision in some cases considering both credit reports and credit score. So building up the history of the startup, it's the most important factor in order to have then later on credit from the banks. Is there any other question or can I go ahead?
Please proceed.
Yes. So here I'm displaying a very specific section of the credit report. You can see that each month the bank will submit the information about the payment or not payment of that facility. So let's say that I have a credit card and I'm not using the credit card at all in November 2025. If I'm not using it, then the information has to go to the bank to say I have not used it, which means that the overdue is zero and the balance is zero, but I am still having that credit card with me and next month I could use it. So as you can see here, there is a field called phase active. It's gonna show that that credit card is still in my hand and I could use it next month. And there are a lot of information about depends on the type of facility. In this case, I'm displaying here a mortgage. What is the outstanding balance, what was the total amount, how many remaining installments have to be paid, when this credit facility contract is supposed to close. Is this an Islamic contract? Is this a contract that has been secured by a guarantee that can be the property itself or cash, or there is a list of guarantees that the banks can map together with the credit facility. As you can see here, and this is very important, I think, for individuals that are married, is that there is also the information of the linked subject to this facility. So husband and wife, that they are having a mortgage, and one is the applicant and the other one is the co-applicant, which means that in case the applicant is not paying, the co-applicant should pay the installment. It's displayed in this section, so the bank will see that I am the co-applicant, and they will be able to then inquire also me because I'm connected actually to this mortgage. So if the payment is not done by the applicant, then the payment should be done by the co-applicant. Now, I often get this information, this question: how often should I check the credit report? Now, the question is a little bit biased because I used to work in so many credit bureaus, so I'm, like a doctor that will not ever tell you to eat something wrong. But I think at least once a year, it's a good target, and the mentors might not be for very long with mentees in a long relationship. However, this would be the recommendation I would give, that at least once a year the credit report can be reviewed. And here in UAE, I'm praising very much Etihad Credit Bureau because I think here we have some implementation that are not available yet in other countries. Here in UAE, Etihad Credit Bureau, as you can see here in the message that I put here, it's even sending alerts SMS. Once you acquire the credit report and the credit score, you will receive alerts if your, for example, in my case, credit score has recently improved. And if you want to see details, you have the link and you can inquire it again. And actually, this was the case. As you can see at the beginning of the presentation, my score was 799. And then because I received this message, I was more or less curious to say how much it improved, and in fact it improved to 809. So it's good to keep in touch with the credit bureau. As you can see here on the left side, there is a history in the application that is called credit report, that you can download on your phone, and it's very easy. There is an integration with UAE Pass, and in most of the countries you can do this to inquire the credit report from from your phone, and not necessarily going to the office of a credit bureau. Now, I wanted to come to the point of what does actually mean credit risk assessment. Um, Credit risk assessment, it's something that the banks, they have to do in order to assess if there is an credit risk of the counterparty against the financial institution. So if that risk is high, respect to the acceptance criteria that they have defined, and based on this assessment, eventually they will decide if the person or the startup or the corporate applying for that credit will will get approved or not. Now, I have to add that this credit risk assessment, it's not done in most of the cases only by looking to the credit score that is calculated by the credit bureau. Most of the institutions, they have also internal scoring solutions that are developed either in-house or by third parties. However, the outcome of the credit risk assessment, its application being approved or rejected by the financial institution. Now, how to create a good credit score and keep it high or improve it? This is another question that usually I get. I have put here the picture of, being at the hospital and the doctor that is checking your blood analysis, and, after that telling you what you should do in order to improve your results. I believe that improving the credit score, it's very similar. So you need to build a payment recovery plan for yourself, for the startup, for the company, and have in mind a plan how to improve it if, in case, the score is not good. There might be events in our life that, not intentionally but unintentionally, we were not able to pay in time the credit, and obviously then in that case the credit score decreased. Now, the first tip, I would say, was the one that I explained at the beginning: get one credit card. And I will not explain further, but that's what I truly believe that helps. Pay the entire credit card amount used every month, and not the minimum agreed with the bank. So in most of the countries, the banks will say, okay, you will use this amount, your credit limit, that it's 10,000. However, the minimum that you have to pay in the payment cycle that is decided, being that 60 days or 90 days, it's 80% of that amount. So that's a kind of flexibility that is given to the customer. However, it's not the best approach. You should always you should get used to pay the entire amount that have been used in that specific amount. Pay all your commitments, and it sounds like obviously by default you should pay your commitments, but because again, in here we don't speak only about commitments to the banks that are in our credit report and are considered for the credit score. We should also pay in time our bills, phone bills, our utilities, our court case, if that's the case, because all of that is now available in the credit bureau information and consider in a way or in another in the credit score. So it can happen, that you are abroad and you have your mobile data that exceed, and then you acquire some additional data, but you didn't pay in time that whatever 100 dirham, which will then be reflected as red in your credit report because you didn't pay them in time. In case you miss payments, and again, not necessarily by intention, but because you had an event in your life, losing your job, or between changing jobs, or you had a bigger expense, a certain amount that you're expecting, you should take agreements with the credit providers for settlement. You should not just ignore it. You should sit down with your relationship manager and understand how to reach a settlement. That could be prolongating your uh, timelines, or decreasing the installment, or converting that type of credit facility in another product type, whatever that settlement is, but you should speak to your bank. Do not commit illegalities which would bring you to a court case, and this is because again court case payments are displayed in the credit report. And if you issue checks, either they are physical checks or set direct payments, you should make sure that you honor them. This information is also available in the credit report in most of the countries, here in UAE as well. And they will eventually impact your credit score in case that check results as bounced. Now, build a credit history as soon as possible to avoid no hit credit score. What does it mean, no hit credit score? It's exactly what we were discussing about the startup at the very beginning. A company or an individual that never had score will result as a no hit score in the credit report. And this means that no credit doesn't mean good credit score. Okay, so even when you start, as a mentee, you start to work, you should start to build that credit score, credit history with a credit card that has a very small limit. Whatever type of credit, even that mobile postpaid engagement, something that showcase that your willingness of paying in time the amount that you have agreed to pay with that institution, being that a telco or a bank. And use your good credit score to get better rates and secure rentals, maybe at more flexible payment terms. So recently you might have come across that here in UAE, Etihad Credit Bureaus launch what is called the tenant score, where the landlords can check on their potential tenants and decide based on that score which of the 5 6 potential tenant score is the best for them. So you should actually, if you have a good credit score, you should use your credit score uh, when you go for an interview, when you are trying to rent a car, or when you are trying to rent your home, or even when you are trying to get an additional credit, because then you might get better interest rates. Now here I put down couple of questions that a mentor could ask, and the background of the question brings to some observations. So for example, a mentor could ask their mentees, what bills has surprised you lately? So that brings you to the payment history risk, right? Maybe your utility bill was very high because it was very hot and the AC was always at 20 degrees. So that bill was higher than you expected. Hopefully, you will be able to pay it in full. That will be reflected in your payment history. Another one would be, what percentage of your card limit do you usually use? And this goes back to the argument that we discussed, the utilization. You could use maybe 90% of your credit limit. Remember always to do the full payment of that utilization. Then, any recent credit applications, having a lot of credit application in a very short time, it's not a good thing. We call them credit shoppers. It means that a person goes to 10 banks within a week and it's asking for a credit. Unfortunately, statistically, it's demonstrated that this type of applicants are having a higher probability of not paying the credit in time. So having multiple credit applications should be avoid. Eventually, best would be that you will check about each and every organization uh, offers on their website or their publicity, discussing maybe with a relationship manager. But then once you got to understand what would be more or less the best credit type for you and the best organization that you would apply for, you should give your consent for this financial institution to check on your credit report and credit score, to not that many in the same time. Is any info excuse me, is any info incorrect? We discussed the disputes and the hygiene, and which suppliers offer early payment discounts. So this is more for the startup, where you could build some cash flow. Now, the observation, as we were saying, it's important to have that healthy utilization, a positive history. Avoid late payments, avoid high utilization. Don't do that many inquiries in a short time. And make sure that if there is any information that it's missing or it's wrong in your credit report, make sure that you will report that to the credit bureau, so that you have always a clean and a correct credit report that will bring you to a correct credit score. Now, my recommendation for the mentors is choose one priority behavior for 30 days, write it down, and as a mentee, try to follow it. It's not easy that you will uh, apply all of them at the same time. However, if you choose to do one at a time within 30 days, you will see that this will become normal and will be always with you, to make sure that you will pay your credit limit credit card in time, as we were saying earlier. Is there any other question, or should I go ahead? I take that as a no. So the credit report, as we were keep discussing, should be something that it's reviewed, that it's the mentor should consider in the discussion with mentees, should not be a heavy talk, right? But should just time to time, give some recommendation. We were saying, 30 days, set the auto payments, pay all your bills in time, maximum like 2 days after you get your salary. 60 days, for example, most of your credit cards will have a 60-day payment cycle. So try to reduce the card utilization, maybe from 45 to 30, close any disputes with documentation, like we were saying, and 90 days, maintain a 3-month on time track. Consider just adding a small installment line and see how that goes. But you should first try to monitor it within 30 days, then you will increase it to 60 days, and then 90 days. So in this way, you will have a period of 90 days that you will keep looking to your credit report, making sure that whatever is to be paid in time, it's paid in time, to the point that you'll reach 1 year when you will pull again your credit report, and eventually you will see that there was an improvement in the credit score. And I think this is my last slide. It's really some ethics for mentors. Of course, first we should ask consent and respect the privacy. We should not take any screenshot or forward information without the permission of the mentee. And here we speak about, the coach should advise, but should not advise or directly recommend credit products. It's an advice on how to monitor the credit, but not how to apply for the credit. Now, of course, you should refer out for legal actions, and it's important that the mentor sees this as an mental health also practice, and if there is any red flags that are due to the financial stress, then it will be, of course, the mentor to discuss this with the mentee.
Thank you so much, Nicoleta, for that inspiring and valuable presentation. We will now open the floor to questions from our audience. Either you can type it in the chat box or you can raise your hand, so we'll be able to unmute you to talk. In the meantime, Nicoleta, I have one question. How can mentoring help individuals make better financial decisions?
I think it relates to, do we speak about financial decision for investment, for saving, or for credit? So eventually, I think here in UAE, most of the people like me 10 years ago when I moved here would wonder, should I rent or should I buy through a mortgage a property? So it has to be a very informed financial decision, right? Because once you get in a engagement and you sign a credit facility such as a mortgage with a bank, that it's an engagement that you have to have for the next 20, 30 years, right? So it's something that you have to understand, that there is a commitment that every month, whatever happens, it's raining, it's flooding, it's hot, you go to work, you are sick or not, you have to pay that installment. So informed financial decisions enable people to have actually a better financial situation, in my opinion, through credit. To credit, actually, in my opinion, you can improve your personal life, but you have to make sure that you did properly your maths to be able to pay that installment and to be able to commit to such a long period of time. When we speak about a personal loan, obviously the timelines are shorter, or a card loan. Whatever financial decision we are analyzing, we need to really do our maths very properly, and these maths could be not only um, related to, the financial situation of the person, such as, your salary or um, your income, but also the personal aspects of you, right? Eventually your family will grow, you will have a child, your expenses will increase, so you have to consider all this information when you make a financial decision.
You. We have a question from Julie. Does it count as a credit inquiry when you ask for your own credit report or score?
Very good question. No, it doesn't. Therefore, it's not affecting your credit score, and it's not being seen as credit shoppers.
Okay, and what are some early warning signs of poor credit management?
Early poor management, is this, can we ask a bit more details on the question, if possible, the person to explain?
Okay, so the question is, what are some early warning signs of poor credit management? If somebody is not able to manage and have a very low credit score, okay, so what
Poor
all the things they
management,
could do?
I mean, I would have seen, sorry, I have seen that more from the bank side, because the bank has to monitor their portfolio, so there could be poor management of their portfolio. But from an individual side, early signs, I believe that it's definitely the increase in the utilization. So that it should be linear, right? It should not be that one, first month you have a credit card that has the limit 2000, you are using 2000, and then the next month there is the jump to 10,000, so there is a big jump in exposure and in utilization. As well, I think it's important to check our own personal expenses. So what type of expenses bring us to that increase from 2000 to 10,000, or maybe, maybe it's a normal increase because maybe that amount you had to pay the rent check, so that's the reason, or maybe you had to pay the school fees. So it's important to have a organic growth in your credit history together with your personal growth.
Okay, great. So, we have one another question. If you could leave the audience with one key takeaway about credit reporting and financial growth, what would it be?
I would say that we should think that the credit helps us to improve our personal lives if it's properly managed.
Okay. We have another question from Julie. Does helping younger people around teen ages get a credit score by adding them as a credit card user helpful, or is this something they should build themselves?
Yeah, so it's actually possible here in UAE and also in other jurisdictions that at 16 you get a credit card and then you have a guardian. So that actually information goes to the credit report. You are not able to take credit until you are 18, but exactly as you are saying, you are actually building for 2 years that history. Now obviously that payment might not be done by the student itself because he's not working at 16, but by the person, by the guardian, that eventually it's the parent, but you are building it. Often when our kids are going to university and they are 18, they might be even abroad, we will give them a credit card, right? So that credit card also, it's they are the user of the credit card, even if maybe the person that is paying the installment itself is the parent. um, the mobile number, it's another, information as such. um, and we should really try. I think few banks in here and around the world, they are actually opening accounts even for minors, and that's exactly the purpose, to help them with the financial literacy and make them accountable, like we were saying earlier, for that payment, that they understand that there is a frequency of payment, that there is a due date, and even that amount is 100 dirham or $100, they have to pay it in time. So it's literally the accountability of making that payment in time.
We still have approximately 5 minutes left. If somebody has a question, please ask. If not, then probably we can wrap it up. We can wait for a few seconds. If somebody has a question, please put it in the chat box, or maybe you can ask us to unmute you. I think, okay. Yes, great. Thank you, Asha. I think nobody has a question now. So thank you once again, Nicoleta, for sharing your expertise with us today about credit score and credit report. It was truly enriching. And thank you, everyone who joined us. We hope you found this session meaningful and inspiring. Stay tuned for upcoming IMC events and webinars. And if you would like to get involved or learn, visit mentoringcenter.org. Wishing you continued growth and connection in your mentoring and leadership journey. Have a wonderful
Thank
day.
you. Thank you
Thank you,
so much,
Nicoleta.
everyone. Bye bye.